Hello, everybody. Jonathan Pulley here with West Coast Weather. Today is February 2nd, and we're going to talk about a powerful storm system that's going to move into California, bringing life-threatening flash flooding and very heavy mountain snows and some strong winds as well. This is going to be a very impactful storm system, and there's a lot to talk about today. We got our powerful cyclone that was over the Gulf of Alaska the past few days. It is weakening right now. It's becoming a remnant low off the coast of the Pacific Northwest. This may bring some isolated showers to parts of Western Washington, Oregon, and Southwest BC, but most of that is done, and calmer weather is going to be entering the Pacific Northwest over the coming week. But then this is going to merge with this plume of moisture, and you can see the low level spin starting to start up of this developing low pressure system that's going to bring in the strong storm right into the California area, bring with it an atmospheric river with heavy flooding rain, some very intense mountain snows for the Sierra Nevadas. There's going to be potential for landslides, rock slides, and of course flash flooding as well. The time is now is to prepare for major issues, especially for Santa Barbara, Ventura, and LA counties over parts of Southern California, especially if you live near the transverse ranges down there along the coastline. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Now looking at general ridge and trough positions on the fresh off the press European model, you can see our trough that's starting to build over the west coast that we were looking at last weekend. But then you can see this other low starting to form over parts of the Pacific Ocean just to the northeast of Hawaii. This is going to bring a strong subtropical and tropical moisture plume right into California, bringing some heavy rain. But you can see the storm rapidly strengthen as it moves into the California coastline, just bombarding the entire California area with heavy mountain snows, flooding rainfall, and the potential for landslides and rock slides and such. It finally kicks out as we go through later midweek, but it's going to be quite a long few day period for much of Southern California as some dangerous weather ensues. So now looking at the mean sea level pressure on the European model, you can see the low pressure system starting to form all right out here, and you can see our remnant storm system off the Pacific Northwest coast this weekend. And look as it merges with the storm system off the coast, and it rapidly strengthens as it goes into the Bay Area. Some models are showing possible 980 millibar low with this, and the European model actually does bring it down to 989. So there's definitely going to be some strong wind potential all the way from the northern California coastline all the way down through the LA counties down to near San Diego. But the rain looks to be the main risk right now before it finally kicks off later next week. But looking on the GFS model, let's see what it's showing. And you can see that it has an even stronger storm system, and it's been showing this consistently. This would help the atmospheric river to move more swiftly through the region, but it would bring a more wind impacts to much of the California coastline, and also would drag some of that moisture up closer to the Bay Area as well. So that would cause some potential for some major flooding issues all the way up the San Jose area. And you can see it drops it down to a powerful 982 millibar low. This would bring some very strong winds to parts of the Bay Area as well, with some gusts in excess of 60 mile per hour, which is very strong. Now looking at precipitable water anomaly, this is basically showing how much moisture there is in the atmosphere compared to normal, and you can see this huge plume of moisture coming right from the tropical regions, and you can see why this is going to generate some pretty heavy precipitation. Thankfully, the models have been starting to back off on the amount of rainfall that's going to be falling over parts of Northern California as this atmospheric river is starting to trend a little faster, so it doesn't remain over the area. But still, some very dangerous and potentially life-threatening flash flooding is still possible with this, and we're going to treat it as if it is going to happen. Better to be prepared than sorry. And now looking at a closer look directly at California, this is on the European model. You can see the low pressure system develop right off the coastline before dropping down to a 989 millibar low off the northern California coastline, bringing that moisture plume right into Southern California. And you can see that the low pressure system kind of starts weakening, but kind of meanders over much of Southern California as we go through Wednesday, leading the precipitation chances continuing in the midweek. Now looking at the 3-hour precipitation on the European model, you can see the huge plume of moisture moving in the storm system, but you can see some of these 3-hour precipitation totals approaching over 1 to 1.5 inches of rain in a 3-hour period. That's very heavy rainfall, and watch as this moisture slams into those coastal transverse ranges of Southern California over Ventura, Santa Barbara, and Los Angeles counties, with 3-hour precipitation totals approaching almost 2 inches in some places. That's some very heavy rainfall, and some high resolution models are showing potentially over an inch of rain in 1 hour, which is very extremely heavy rainfall. Now looking at the NAM3 cam, this is composite reflectivity. This is basically showing us what the radar may look like. As we play this through, you can see that our storm system starts approaching an area with rainfall from this powerful storm system starting to affect area later on Saturday afternoon into the evening. The main event looks to be Sunday through Monday, but it's going to start late on Saturday. But you can see the strong frontal system and the main moisture plume initially going up towards the Bay Area, but as that storm system moves into the coastline, it's going to drag this very heavy precipitation rates and some of those convective cells into the mountain ranges. It's going to wring out all the moisture like if you wring out a towel. That's basically what's going to be happening. And then any other moisture is going to be making over the Sierra Nevadas, where some very heavy mountains and extreme winter storm conditions are likely. And this model doesn't go out far enough to see the end of the range, but you can see these very heavy precipitation rates in the yellow and oranges. Now looking at the HRRR, it doesn't go out as far as the NAM, but we can see a very similar picture showing up as we go through early on Sunday, with some heavy precipitation rates spreading over much of central and southern California, with heavy snow in the Sierra Nevadas and some of those higher elevations of the transverse mountain ranges. Now looking at the NAM3 cam, 10-meter wind gusts. Some of the earlier models were showing even stronger winds, and this is still going to change. There's going to be exactly where this low pressure system goes and how strong it's going to get is still in question. Models are changing consistently, but you can see even with this this one run shows the low not getting down the 989 millibars as the European model shows, but still showing potential wind gusts 60 to 70 miles per hour on some of those open beach areas, with some maybe even some 90 mile per hour gusts possible in the higher mountains. So definitely some extreme conditions up there in the backcountry, with even gusts 50 to 60 miles per hour approaching parts of the Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. So you're going to be getting that heavy rain and also some strong winds, so that loose soil that the rain's going to cause is going to potentially lead to some more tree damage and can uproot trees. Now looking at the National Blended Models total precipitation inches, if we just let this play out, we can see that as we go through the 10-day period, we can see that there's going to be potential for over 6 inches of rainfall in some of those transverse ranges. And you can even see that there's going to be maybe some isolated totals over 10 inches for some of the transverse mountain ranges. And you can see that it's also highlighting some of the coastline just south of San Jose as well. So there's going to be flooding potential all the way up to just south of the Bay Area, and the Bay Area looks to pick up and a good 2 to 3 inches as well, which that could cause some flooding as well, especially if the atmospheric river trends a little farther north. But you can see that Ventura, Santa Barbara, and Los Angeles counties are definitely the highlight, with even Los Angeles picking up maybe 4 to 6 inches potentially, which is a very heavy rainfall for down there. Even for Seattle, 5 to 6 inches within a 2-day period is very heavy rainfall. So extra heavy for parts of Southern California. And looking at total snow through the next week or so, you can see that the max on this model is approaching over 100 inches of snow. We're going to be measuring snow in feet in the Sierra Nevadas, with some of the higher elevations possibly approaching 8 to 10 feet of snow over the next week or so. So definitely some very healthy snowfall totals, but it's also going to lead to some very tough travel conditions and some very dangerous mountain pass conditions. So please do not go over the mountain passes over the Sierras over the next week or so. And if you do decide and have to go over, make sure to bring lots of days worth of supplies, if just in case if something bad were to happen. But just please do not go into the mountains over the next 7 days. And now looking at the composite reflectivity, zooming in on Southern California, here's Los Angeles right here. You can see Ventura and Santa Barbara counties over here. This is looking at the composite reflectivity. We can get a closer look at some of those heavier convective cells and potential isolated thunderstorms. And that's going to lead to some extra extreme precipitation as that instability in the atmosphere plus the very heavy moisture just banks up against some of those coastal mountain ranges. And you can see that those oranges and reds are showing some very heavy precipitation totals, and I'll show you the 1 hour precipitation totals here in a second. Now looking at the 1 hour precipitation total in inches, as we play this through, you can see the atmospheric river starting to really affect parts of the Ventura and Santa Barbara counties as we go through later on Sunday in the Sunday evening. And you can see some of these precipitation totals. Look at these 1 hour totals approaching over an inch of rainfall in some of these coastal and mountain areas. That is some very heavy rainfall. Now looking at surface-based CAPE or convective available potential energy. This is basically showing how much energy there is in the atmosphere for thunderstorm potentially. And there's going to be some, as you can see, with over 100 joules per kilogram of CAPE showing up in some places. This is going to lead to heavier rainfall rates, and this can lead the potential torrential downpours as well, and maybe an isolated thunderstorm as well, which is not what we want on top of everything else. Now looking at the tornado parameter, there's even going to be some slight potential, as you see as we go through later on Sunday. You can see that there's some slight potential for some water spouts, maybe a weak funnel or isolated tornado on the coastline, just an added thing. This is definitely not the main threat, but some added extra thing on top of everything else we're dealing with. Now looking at the total precipitation in NAM, this kind of gives us a better idea of some of the higher localized totals on the high resolution model, but this doesn't go out through the Monday and the Tuesday time frame, so it's not including that heavy precipitation that's going to start moving in over parts of San Diego and south and east of Los Angeles. But you can see by just Sunday evening, some of these totals approaching 9 inches on parts of the transverse ranges, with a lot of the coastline approaching 2 to 4 inches already, with even more coming in after that, especially for Los Angeles. Exactly where the heaviest axis of moisture is going to set is still in question, but anywhere from just south of Cape, the Cape over here, south towards Los Angeles and the San Diego's in for some very heavy rainfall. And looking at the year, the fresh off the press European model, we can see the some of the heavy precipitation totals. It's been backing off. Some of the models were showing over 10 to 15 inches potentially. There's still a chance of some isolated locations in the mountains approaching the 10 to 15 inches, as a lot of the models tend to underdo some of these events, especially when there's some added instability that increase those rainfall rates. But you can see that it's showing all the way from San Diego all the way up to Santa Barbara and Ventura counties, basically 2 to 4, maybe even 5 inches for some of those lowland coastal areas, with the mountains approaching 6 to 10 inches of rain, with isolated totals higher than that possible. So some very extreme rainfall. And looking at the same graphic on the GFS models, we play this through, it's been kind of showing less rainfall than all the other models, but that's also because it's got a lower resolution, so it can't really get some of those higher details in the mountains and stuff. But even then, it's still showing out 2 to 4 inches for much of the coastline, with potential over 6 inches in some of the mountain areas. Now, from looking at the National Weather Service Weather Prediction Center, they already have a day 2 excessive rainfall out, like marginal risk for everywhere from Los Angeles County up to the Bay Area. This is when the rain is going to start later on Saturday in the early on Sunday, but then you can see immediately goes to a slight and moderate risk for much of the coastline, especially Ventura, Santa Barbara, and some of those counties south of the Bay Area. And you can see that the moderate risk is basically a 40% chance within a 25 mile of a point for the risk of exceeding flash flood guidance. So this is basically a 40% chance of flash flood guidance being done, and that's going to cause some very high river rises and definitely some trouble down there. Moderate risks, especially on the day 3 and day 4 outlooks, are not very common, so definitely a significant event about to unfold. And you can see the day 4 risk, it extends the moderate risk all the way down to LA counties as well, and this is going to continue in the day 5 with maybe downgrading to a slight risk, but still heavy rainfall expected as we go into the Tuesday timeframe before it finally starts kicking out on Wednesday. So there's a potential for this to get upgraded to a high risk of excessive rainfall, which is very rare, so definitely keep an eye out for that. Now looking at a graphic from the National Weather Service of Sacramento, California, this is looking at the storm timeline from today through February 6th, and you can see that some minor to light to no impacts over the next day or so. But as we go in the Sunday morning into Monday out, you can see major impacts as the brunt of the storm system moves through, with periods of heavy snow over the mountains and moderate to heavy rain in the valley. Snow levels 3,000 to 4,500 feet in Sierra and 2,500 to 3,500 feet in the Cascades, increasing throughout the day. Gusty winds south of I-80. And then you can see there's still going to be some moderate and minor impacts as we go through later on Tuesday and the Wednesday as well. And this is for some of the central and northern California where not as high of the impacts are expected. But there's already flood watches out for Saturday evening through Monday morning for much of the Bay Area going south of San Jose. This is from 4 p.m. Saturday through 10 a.m. Monday. Don't worry about the exact time frame as the rainfall may extend or be a little less than what this already shows, but anywhere from the Bay Area through the central coastline and flooding due to excessive rainfall, the impacts will be rising. It rises on creeks, rivers, streams, flooding of creeks, streams, and in urban areas, potentially ponding of water on roadways and other low-lying areas, increasing risk of shallow landslides. Example, rocks or debris on roadways. And you can see that the forecast confidence is high. So this is not just a maybe thing. This is looking like a for sure thing. And you can see that there's also going to be hazardous winds on Sunday with already wind advisories and high wind warnings showing the potential for gusty winds could blow around unsecured objects and down trees, could result in power outages. And this is also going to increase the risk of landslides as those tree roots and such are going to be weakened by the rainfall. And then you get the swaying trees on top of that. This is for the Bay Area and Central Coast, strongest winds and higher terrain along the immediate coastline. Now looking at the winter storm severity index, and you can see much of the highest terrain of the Sierras is going to have extreme winter storm impacts above 5,000 feet due to the snow load and snow amounts up to 6 feet. And there's going to be some isolated tools in the highest terrain approaching 8 to 10 feet possibly, as some of the models have shown, with this being through Saturday night through Sunday night. And there's going to be potential even after that as well. Travel should be restricted to emergencies only. If you must travel, carry a winter survival kit with you. If stranded, stay within your vehicle. So just please do not go over the mountain passes over this 5 to 7 day period, as there's going to be some very extreme impacts up there in the highest terrain. And also looking at a nice graphic from the National Weather Service of Hanford, California, you can see precipitation in the valleys approaching 1 to 2 inches of rainfall, with 2 to 4 inches on some of the coastal areas and mountain ranges, and especially the Sierras, with well over 4 to 6 feet of snow expected in some of those higher places like Lake Thomas, Edison, and Lodgepole. Now looking at a graph from the National Weather Service of Los Angeles, you can see that there's going to be some thunderstorm potential as we go through later this weekend, but you can see they're highlighting the risk of life-threatening and damaging flooding from Sunday all the way through Monday night. And you can see the heaviest rainfall is, which they're showing up as very heavy on their graphic, for especially on Sunday night when that mainstream of moisture goes in. Snow levels will be around 6,000 to 7,000 feet with 3 to 6 inches, except 6 to 12 inches in the mountains and foothills. Confidence is moderate, totals of plus or minus 2 inches, and timing of plus or minus 12 hours. Just don't pay attention to exact totals and exact timings, as things will happen differently than expected. But some sort of major flooding issues and the strong storm are certain. Just the exact impacts are kind of more uncertain. Heavy rain, strong winds, and mountain snow Saturday night through Tuesday on this graphic from the National Weather Service of Los Angeles. This is from Saturday night through Tuesday. Extended period of heavy rain peaking Sunday and Monday. Rain totals of 3 to 6 inches for the coasts and valleys, with 6 to 12 inches in the foothills and mountains. Those are some pretty crazy totals to be thinking about in Southern California, with significant mountain snowfall, several feet of snow likely in the higher terrain. Widespread strong damaging southeast winds, potential for significant widespread flood impacts, chance of thunderstorms with especially heavy downpours, impacts in action, roadway, urban, small stream, and mainstream river flooding, rock/debris/damage on mountain and canyon roads, especially power outages possible, heavy mountain snow with travel delays and road closures likely. Bring winter emergency supplies, check road conditions, keep up with the date of the forecast, avoid flooded roadways. This is the real deal, folks. Dangerous winds, seas, and surf as well, so be very careful. If you're any mariners out there, you should probably stay off all jetties and only swim near lifeguards. You shouldn't really be swimming during this, with winds of 25 to 40 knots, increasing to 45 plus knots Sunday and Monday. Seas large mix of northwest swell and steep southerly windways. Peak surf heights of 15 to 20 feet on the central coast, decreasing 12 to 15 feet. And Point Conception, 8 to 12 feet, decreasing 6 to 9 feet. Nobody should be out there swimming. Just please don't. And now looking at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, Valley February 7th through the 11th, you can see below average temperatures starting to approach the west coast as that trough kind of digs over the region. You can see, obviously, the highlighted area is the southwest United States, all the way from Oregon down to California, with those Pacific storm systems moving through with near normal to slightly below average for parts of Washington over the next week or so. Now looking at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, there's still a lot of variability. I'm not going to talk about this time frame that much, but highlighting generally near normal to below average temperatures for much of the western US from February 9th through the 15th, and a below average precipitation potentially for parts of Washington and Idaho and Montana, near normal for much of the central west coast, and potentially above average still for parts of Southern California. But we'll continue to watch that as we go through the coming week or so. Well, that's it for this video, everybody. Please heed all the warnings and watches and advisories out there. Please stay tuned to the National Weather Service and your weather radios. Always keep your phone by your side if there's any flash flood warnings issued. This is definitely going to be a potentially dangerous and life-threatening event with some extreme snowfall in the Sierra Nevadas and very heavy flooding rainfall for much of Southern California, especially the coastal areas and the transverse mountain ranges. Please do not drive over any flood roads. Turn around, don't drown, as the National Weather Service says. There's so many people during events every single year that we see stranded out in the middle of the roadway in their cars and vehicles in feet of water. And I don't want to see anybody in those situations, especially, and we don't want to see that ever. And that's why I've especially have some very strong wording on this video, because I don't want to see anybody experiencing those type of issues. So just please heed all warnings and watches and stay safe out there. And I'll likely have another video either out tomorrow or Sunday continuing to talk about this as this event starts unfolding. So take care, stay safe out there, everybody, and God bless.